Chiropractic began in the year 1895. The point, 1895, a very important year chiropractically. The same year, 1895, a man named Niels Fennissen from Denmark was treating one of the worst infections of the era, then and now, still a very bad infection, tuberculosis. His outcomes were incredible. He had a 95% cure rate. This 1895 is before antibiotics. Remember, Fleming got the Nobel Prize for antibiotics, but his research didn't even start until 1928. And it didn't get the Nobel Prize until more than a decade later. The point of it is, he's treating the worst infection with a 95% cure rate without antibiotics. You got to think about that. Who would even have dreamed of doing anything like that today? So impressed are medical authorities with his outcomes that he was awarded the 1903 Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology. Interestingly, the first vitamin that was discovered, vitamin A, that's why it has an A, it was the first one discovered, ABC right on the line, was 1912. So he's doing this before they even knew what a vitamin was. They now know why what he did worked, and it's because of a vitamin called vitamin D. The vitamin D is the sun vitamin. It's the one you get from just getting out into the sun. They now know that vitamin D helps the immune system fight every known infection, whether it be bacteria, virus, parasitic, fungal, whatever it is. Vitamin D will help ramp up what they call the innate immune response and helps us to fight infection. 3 years ago, I turned 53 years of age, and I attended my 35-year high school reunion. In polling my classmates, I was shocked that of the group that attended, 80% were taking statin pharmacology. These are drugs that are designed to reduce cholesterol levels. 80% of the 53-year-olds in my 35-year high school reunion were taking that category of drugs. And talking with them, they had a variety of health issues that they attributed to taking these statin drugs. So I started to do some research on statin drugs, and what I found is shocking. The first thing is I arranged a dinner with a mentor, a guy named Russell Blaylock. Blaylock is a physician out of Jackson, Mississippi. He's a neurosurgeon, and he wrote a book that I like so much. It's called Health and Nutrition Secrets That Can Save Your Life. And I scored a dinner with Dr. Blaylock, and I said to Dr. Blaylock during that dinner, what is the biggest hoax in medicine at this time? And he said, without hesitation, that it appeared to be statin pharmacology, that they were way over-marketed, they didn't work for most people that were taking them, and that their health benefits were being greatly exaggerated. When one is sitting in the car, and the car is struck from behind, the car and the body that is in contact with the seat move forward. The head stays still. The result is the body goes underneath the head, and the things that hold the two larger pieces of mass to one another, the head to the trunk, the cervical spine, the neck, sustains what is called an inertial injury. My interest in kids really started with the birth of my own daughters, Danielle and Candace, D&C, like Doctor of Chiropractic, Danielle and Candace. Danielle is now 24 years of age. Candace is 13 years of age. And I delivered both of my daughters. I have quite an interest in pediatrics now, but Danielle did not come to us until my 10th year of clinical practice. So I've done a lot of reading on chiropractic and pediatrics, because why would anyone take a child to a chiropractor? Well, there's a book out called Manual Therapy in Children by a guy named Heiner Biederman. It's a 2004 copyright from the big medical publisher out of the UK, Churchill Livingston. Biederman is a physician out of Germany. And if you look at that book, it is the best book I've ever seen to describe the physiology of why little children need chiropractic. Biederman has 23 global contributing authors to his book. And part of what the book includes is a history of orthopedics. Ortho means straight. Pedics means pediatrics. So orthopedics started with the realization that children who were not straight had a very difficult life in front of them. And if they could do anything to straighten these kids out, by the way, this is in the 1700s, if they could do anything to straighten these kids out, they would proportionally benefit their health and their lives. pediatrics started with children who were not straight. So this is pretty much the same goal with chiropractic. Chiropractors look at little children and they look at two things. They look at their symmetry of posture, and then they look at their symmetry of motion. 28% of Americans at any given time are suffering from pain, and that the typical thing they do for this pain is they swallow pain medicine called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Specifically, the article said that Americans are spending $17 billion per year on pain medicine. Understanding pain is nothing new. If you go back to the 1982 Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology, you'll see this little bit of biochemistry. A fat called arachidonic acid is converted into a pain-producing hormone called prostaglandin E2. What they realized all the way back in 1982 is that the #1 reason for pain in America, in the world, is this hormone, this chemical, prostaglandin E2. Prostaglandin E2 has a single precursor. It is a fat called arachidonic acid. The conversion of the fat arachidonic acid into the hormone prostaglandin E2 is controlled by an enzyme called COX, which is slang for cyclooxygenase. So what pain medicines do, pain medicines inactivate that enzyme. If you inactivate that enzyme, you cannot convert arachidonic acid into prostaglandin E2, and the result is people have less pain. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs at their simplest includes aspirin. Aspirin is a COX inhibitor. If you knock out the COX with aspirin, you will get less pain because you don't make the conversion. Other pain medicines work by the same mechanism. This includes medicines like Aleve, Advil, Motrin, Naproxen, Naproxen, Celebrex, Vioxx, Bextra. All of these commercially available pain medicines, some of them prescription, some of them over the counter, work identically. They block the COX so that you do not develop prostaglandin E2. But if you go all the way back to the original Nobel Prize, 1982, in the original Nobel, they document that there are problems taking this type of pain medicine. When you consume aspartame, aspartame is made up of 2 amino acids. One is called phenylalanine, the other is called aspartic acid or aspartate. And they realized that aspartate docks onto a certain receptor in your brain called the NMDA receptor. It actually stands for N-methyl-D-aspartate receptor. And they know that this is the receptor that is the #1 excitatory receptor in human physiology. So that if anything that docks there, it's kind of like if this is the cell and this is the receptor, here comes the aspartate. If it docks there, it excites the cell. Well, if the cell is a taste nerve, it enhances taste. So things taste better. So people like this taste. It's a very, very sweet taste. They find that another molecule will do exactly the same thing. It's called glutamate. Most of us best know glutamate as monosodium glutamate, or MSG. In any case, what they realize is that anytime these chemicals dock like this, that it enhances taste. It excites the nerve. It makes boring food taste like better food. So manufacturers like to use these things. So they'll put this stuff in gum, they'll put it in yogurts, they'll put it in drinks, they put it in diet sodas, etc. Glutamate is found in almost everything. In fact, the word that is used, it's ubiquitous, which means it's found everywhere. The problem with glutamate, it has maybe 30 different ways that they put it in labeling. It can be called hydrolyzed vegetable protein. It can be called calcium caseinate. It can be called yeast extract. It can even be called things as innocuous as spices or natural flavors, because glutamate is an amino acid. It's a part of a protein. It's all natural. The point of it, though, is that they realize if you constantly dock things into these excitatory receptors, you literally, this is not figurative, you literally excite the neuron to death. The neuron dies. I was up here tail end of last year. Mike gave me a copy of the Oregon Department of Fish and Game pamphlet or book, whatever it is, and it showed all of the fish that are being caught in various reservoirs and rivers in the state of Oregon, and why you should avoid them because of the mercury, the polychlorine biphenyls, and other toxins that they're finding in essentially all of the fish in this state. And let's face it, this state has got to be cleaner than other states, right? And yet it still has so many toxins. They're saying, be careful, you really shouldn't eat these fish, catch the fish, let them go, don't eat these fish. But McDonald's last year recalled, no kidding, 12 million Shrek cups. Did you see that? They recalled them. The reason is the etching of Shrek and everybody else that they was done with a metal called cadmium, which is a serious neurodevelopmental blocker. It's worse than lead. Of course, guess who did that for McDonald's? What country? It was done in China. But they do it cheaper, so they did it. They got caught. They had to recall these things. What trauma is when you put too much stress into those tissues, and just like a piece of paper here, they literally tear. Trauma is the tearing of tissues. And what it really is, it is a disruption of the continuity of the crisscross pattern. I tear this paper. Will this paper ever heal? It won't. It's going to be like this forever. Now I might put some tape on it or some glue or something, whatever. It's never going to be like it was before. The human body is different. When you tear the tissues of the human body, a sequence of events will then progress that will heal the wound.